Well, there's the red heifer prophecy. Everyone's asking. So I think the first thing we're just gonna jump right into it. There's a red heifer sacrifice is gonna come probably on April 8th, and everyone's wondering what this means. Why they're doing a sacrifice that's akin to some black magic ritual? Why it's happening in Israel on Eid? What relevance it has to the state of Israel, and what the Temple of Solomon is. I think the first place we need to start, and I love starting at this place because this paints the whole picture. It lays the foundation for what we're really talking about. Is that the first and the final prime minister of Israel right now is secular and doesn't believe in God. So we start there. So everyone must realize the fact that the prime minister does not believe in God. He rejects God. And yet his mentor was a Kabbalistic Jew who practiced black magic, and that's who taught him. So there's a very convoluted story that we need to start from there. Now, there's a prophecy about the creation of a third temple, the Temple of Solomon, right? That's what the Israelis are trying to build towards. They're trying to build the Temple of Solomon. And in fact, the evangelical prophecy about the state of Israel, the prophecy about when their Messiah will come, has three parts to it. The first part is the evangelicals believe that there needs to be the creation of a country of Israel.
Wow.
They believe the second part is that Jerusalem is a Jewish city. And the third part is that the Temple of Solomon needs to be built. In fact, what is those guys, Joseph, Paul, all those, the evangelical Christian, disciples or whatever they're called?
Oh, the apostles, yeah.
Apostles?
Yeah.
This is their testament. So this is what they say needs to happen before the Messiah comes. And then the Messiah will come. It's very strange. And this is why the evangelicals and the Zionists are so, in union right now,
Yeah.
even though they hate each other. Like all the evangelicals right now, a lot of them are even Zionists. Why? Man, they hate Jews. And Jews hate the evangelicals. But they're working together to fulfill this prophecy because they believe, each of them, that their own guy is going to come. And then that's when everything's going to be set right. The evangelicals believe when Christ comes back, he'll just set the Jews straight and destroy them. The Jews believe, no, when our Messiah comes, we'll be the king of all, and then we'll eliminate the Christians and the Muslims. But the story starts in the times of Prophet Suleiman. All black magic and all occultism that exists today, the Freemasons, the Kabbalistic Jews with all their prophecies of the Temple of Solomon and the red heifer, these guys all stem from one time. It's the time of the Temple of Solomon, the Prophet Solomon's time. During the time of Prophet Suleiman alayhi salam, he created one of the most opulent, greatest temples in the history of Earth. Okay, it's said that his kingdom was one of the most advanced kingdoms. In what way, we don't really know, but it's one of the most advanced kingdoms. Perhaps in masonry, perhaps in opulence, whatever it was. The greatest kingdom. And at that time, he hired a specific mason. A mason is an individual who's good at stonework to build his temple. And this is according to both the Christian and the Freemason belief, as well as the Kabbalistic Jewish belief, that there was an individual hired by the name of Hiram Abif. Okay? His name is Hiram Abif. That's city of Tyre. I think he comes from the city of Tyre during that time. Those were his two greatest kingdoms. And he hired him because he was the greatest mason alive. I want you to help me build this temple. That's what Suleiman said. And this guy comes along, and mind you, this is what they believe. In Islamic literature, there's not much known about Hiram Abif. Perhaps because it was not important. Perhaps it didn't even exist. But according to the Jews, especially the occultists, the Freemasons and the Kabbalists, they hold this guy in high regard. Because he came with secrets about masonry, about geometry, how to work with all types of stone. And these were secrets. These were not like open things that they would share. No, these were trade secrets. How to carve bronze and how to, shape emeralds and how to make stone arches so that they don't collapse and strong and they last for centuries and all these things. In fact, at that time, it was very common for secret societies to be propping up here and there and sharing their geometrical and mathematical secrets. And so this guy was one of them, claimed to be the greatest mason of all. He comes to the city of Solomon, and this is where the Muslims and the Freemasons and the Christians and Jews separate. Because the Muslims believe Prophet Suleiman was an upright individual. But the Freemasons and the Christians and the Jews believe that Suleiman was a magician.
Wow.
And so when he hired Hiram Abif came and built this temple with his secrets. And then Bilqis, right? Bilqis, what's her English name? I forget what her English name is. It's Queen of Sheba, right?
Yeah.
So Bilqis comes and then eventually marries Suleiman according to the Christian and Freemason tradition, but she falls in love with Hiram Abiff, this master mason of the creation who created the temple, and then cheats on Suleiman, and all these types of things happen. And Suleiman gets jealous and then orders his execution. During this time of Hiram Abiff, he has these, like basically disciples that would teach about his secrets, and they would have to be indoctrinated into his basically cult at that time. And if they didn't, he couldn't share the secrets. But there's a few group of them who wanted his secrets, killed them for it, and then created the tradition of Freemasonry from there. At the same time, Suleiman and all the jinns that he controlled, because it was said that he was contracting demons, according to the Christians and the Jews, it was said that he controlled the jinns from the Muslims. There's a difference there, right? Contracting and controlling by the order of God is different.
Yeah.
Contracting is you're making a contract with devils or demons, and controlling them is God, forcing them to submit to you as basically slaves. So there's a difference. Said some of those rebelled and taught the people black magic, and then that black magic tradition turned into the Kabbalistic Jews. And then you have what it is known as today as the Kabbalistic Freemasons. That's why the Rothschild family funded and started the State of Israel.
Wow.
Okay?
SubhanAllah.
It's a very long story. It's a very long story, and there's so many different ways we could go about it. But I think, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think people are interested in that we could talk about specifically right now?
Well, I think clearly this is something that goes back thousands of years, and which means it has thousands of years of information, which means we could be here for the next few thousand years talking. Yeah, yeah, subhanAllah. I think people want to know about this red heifer sacrifice, what it means, if it means something, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who these people are to begin with.
So the red heifer sacrifice is part of this black magic tradition that, mind you, is unknown why they're doing it according to the Jews
So they
and
don't
the
even know.
Freemasons. They don't know why, they just know they were apparently ordered by God. In fact, in their traditions, it is believed that even King Solomon, who was given information on all things, didn't know why they had to sacrifice the red heifers. He just did them.
Wow.
It was just ordered. And so the ultra orthodox believe that, okay, there are some things that God does not give us the power to know. These are one of those unknown things that we just have to listen to God and do.
They do that stuff a lot, by the way.
Yeah. They have a few things they do that with. The
The
kosher.
concealment is so. Oh, really?
Concealment too is an interesting one, but the
Yeah.
kosher as well. There's a lot of kosher that they don't know why it's kosher. But they just believe it because God believes it. And listen, I could understand that.
Yeah.
Muslims have it to some degree. You don't, like, you're supposed to listen to a commandment of God even though you don't know it. But there are some things that just make no sense, that they do it because they do it.
Yeah, and in the case of the Muslims, we don't really believe in like contradictions or like paradoxes, right? Like sometimes if we don't understand something, we'll say it's up to Allah. Like Allah's full mercy, no one can understand that. So we say, okay, that's something. It's true, but we don't know what it means and how. But in the case of these what is the word?
The Kabbalists.
So with these Jewish mystics,
Mystics. And I think we need to define what Kabbalist is
yeah,
before we get into the red heifer
Yeah.
and then why they're doing it and
Yeah.
what the Temple of Solomon is.
yeah, inshallah. So we'll jump on that, inshallah. So something they say about the red heifer prophecy, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but on the Temple Institute website, if you look at the final step, they say that anyone who had any contact with the red heifer in its preparation from beginning to end becomes impure, so they're not pure. And then they say the point of it is to purify the nations and the people, the communities. So then they say it's this fact. It's a profound paradox
Yeah.
that only God knows why and how. Somehow, the same agent that brings purity to others renders some people impure. This is the profound paradox and all this stuff. It makes no sense.
And so this is the confusion that we get, especially when we're talking about occultic black magic, because I want people to understand, bro, everything is black magic. These elites are all involved in some occultic fraternity or black magic practice. In fact, the very term of the foundation of Qabalah, which is Jewish mysticism, is black magic, fundamentally. You know what I mean? And so let's go back to the red heifer.
Yeah.
The red heifer is supposed to signal the creation of the Temple of Solomon. Everyone's asking what the Temple of Solomon is. Why did they want to build a Temple of Solomon? You see, during the time of King Solomon, he built a temple, as I just explained.
Yeah.
It had great significance, not just to the Jews, because Solomon had the greatest kingdom of Israel, and so that was the greatest temple. They want to bring back that kingdom, but also has significance to the Freemasons.
Really?
The Freemasons, all of their lodges. In fact, if you go to a few lodges here in the local
there's
area,
one close by. It's like 5 minutes away.
if you go inside of it and you ask them, why'd you build the interior like this? And they say, we built it in the image of the Temple of Solomon.
You want to go talk to them?
We could talk to them. That would
Yeah.
be a sick video.
Yeah.
They would tell you, they'll attest to the fact that this lodge is built in the image of Temple of Solomon. The interior is built. That is the architectural design behind it.
SubhanAllah.
Because they believe a lot of their traditions stem from that time. It's very sad to say that King Solomon, Prophet Suleiman, which we hold in very high regard, there's a lot of fitna that was created at that time. Why? Because from every account, there were jinns or demons.
Yeah.
Everyone believes this at that time roaming. Now, there's a difference in opinion. Muslims believe that Suleiman had them enchained, enslaved. Christians believe they were doing contracts. In fact, there's I think in the Dead Sea Scrolls it was talked about, and correct me if it was Dead Sea Scrolls or another Gnostic text or what it was, where he was contracting with the king of demons, Asmodeus. And Asmodeus gave him, this is specifically written in their books, that Asmodeus told them about star signs and like the Aquarius, Sagittarius and stuff.
That's a form of witchcraft as well.
And that's, of course, it's a form of witchcraft. And that's why I rebuke it completely when people talk about star signs.
Yeah.
And Asmodeus would tell him, or one of the demons would tell him, like, I'm attributed to the sign of Aquarius. So Solomon in the Gnostic text would ask him, what sign are you attributed to? And then he would say, I'm attributed to the sign of Aquarius. And I teach the people this, but only to lead them astray.
They think he was an astrology girl.
Well, astrology comes from these demons.
Yeah.
So the original interpretation of the astrology was there are demons that are assigned these astrological signs, and that when you identify with an astrological sign, you open yourself up subconsciously to a sort of minor possession. That's why you start to act like an Aquarius. Aquarius are very free-hearted. This is the occultic belief, but the occultists believe this. That's why they'll openly say, I'm an Aquarius and I'm in my this rising and that, because they're actually trying to invoke this type of relationship. Regular people just do it.
Yeah.
See, even Muslim girls nowadays, even see there, we're supposed to be the last bastion of protection.
Yeah,
I'm a Libra. I'm a Gemini.
Yeah. Yeah. And they actually try and make it some kind of a logical thing, like, oh, stars physically exist, and we can prove that anecdotally or empirically, based on the last time the stars were like this and this happened, and the moon and the sun were like this. And
low IQ. It's a low IQ take. It's a fundamentally low IQ take, because they're forgetting, why do the stars and the suns even have that power in the first place? If they actually believe that, because I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the fact that Mercury rising will increase, will ruin your communication skills at that time in a few weeks. No, that's wrong. You know what I mean? It's only the people who are fundamentally aware of these things and channel them, then it sort of becomes true. It's almost like you're inviting these spirits.
Yeah.
Anyways, we went off topic.
Yeah, we were talking about the red heifer prophecy.
Yeah. So, well, Suleiman, what's the significance of Solomon's temple? Remember, the red heifer, there's no real understanding of why they do it. They just know it's a precursor for the Jews to build the Temple of Solomon. Not the Zionists, not the Israelis. All Jews. Wow. This is not simply a Zionist thing. The Jews have been trying to do this for 1,920 years, pretty much. Since the destruction of their second temple, which is destroyed by the Romans, they've been trying to rebuild the third Temple of Solomon. And why? Because it was a significant temple during a significant time. Both for the Freemasons, who build their temple in the image of Solomon's temple, and for the Jews, because they believe it'll herald the coming of their Messiah. In the Jewish tradition, there's a concept of a Messiah. Right? They have a concept of Messiah who will come, and he's going to be a political Messiah. He's not going to be a divine Messiah. Yeah. He'll be a political Messiah. He's not going to bring about divine revelation. He's not going to have an intimate connection with God. What is he going to do? He's going to establish a kingdom. He's going to be a king. Yeah. And the kingdom, according to the fundamental Orthodox Judaism, is going to control the whole world. And according to scriptures from the Talmud, he's going to enslave all the non-Jews. Yeah. So everyone who is non-Jew, mind you, ethnically non-Jew, because you can't convert into Judaism. Yeah. Your children can, if you marry a Jewish woman, but you are forever condemned. Fundamentally, they'll enslave everybody. Okay, and this is Orthodox Judaism. Okay, so that's what's gonna happen when the temple comes and their Messiah is come. that same individual is regarded by both the Christians and the Muslims as what? The Antichrist. They believe from that exact region, under those circumstances, the Antichrist is going to come. In fact, that's what the evangelicals believe. The evangelical Christians have a relationship with Israel. They're the biggest supporters. All the Christian politicians in America, they're evangelical.
Wow.
And they're big time supporters of Israel. They'll fund it. They'll push for it. They'll lobby for Israel. Because they believe in the same thing the Israelis believe, except they believe that Messiah is going to be the Antichrist.
Wow.
The only reason they're doing it is because they want their own Messiah to come. They're like, the faster the Antichrist is going to come, the faster the Messiah is coming.
That's the same reason the people who bred the red heifers bred them. They were Christian Zionists.
They were Texans. They were Christian Zionists. And so they bred it. They're like, okay, let's help them bring the Antichrist, because we know, according to our books, that when the Antichrist comes, then Jesus is going to come back, establish order, destroy the Antichrist, and create a kingdom of peace. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a man-made prophecy. This is not divine. And that's another contradiction. That these individuals, all of them, both the Freemasons and the evangelical Christians and the Israelis, the Jews, let's say, they're all trying to fulfill a man-made prophecy by their own hand. They're trying to build the Temple of Solomon and further their Masonic age. As fast as possible. Let's find the red heifers. Let's, in fact, breed them. Let's create labs in Israel to try to genetically engineer these heifers, because that's what they tried to do for a solid few years. So that the Messianic age could come. And that's fundamentally where this whole thing lies, the difference between Muslims and these other groups, because Muslims wait for prophecy. We do not get involved at all. We wait for the signs to come, and we just observe.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's an important difference to mention. If it is a prophecy, why are you trying to force it so hard? If it's a prophecy, it's going to come true no matter what. Whether you try or you try and do it or try and stop it, it's going to happen regardless. So why are you trying so hard to manufacture it? But so let's talk about what actually happens in the red heifer sacrifice. What's the actual procedure like, and why is it demonic? Why is it black magic?
You have to understand, in Islam, we have a concept where it's not really good to burn people alive, for no matter what punishment. You can't burn them to death. Why? Because fire is the punishment of Allah. And so they take the red heifer, these people, and they're going to go and to some extent burn it and use its ashes to purify the land. They use the ashes of the red heifer to purify the land. That's the sacrifice. The red heifer, the red cow, according to Jewish scripture, holds certain significant holy traits as long as it fulfills those conditions. It can't have any blemishes. It has to be perfectly red. It has to be 4 years old during the time of sacrifice. It can never have a cloth covering its eyes. A bunch of small little weird little things. 9 times in history so far, they've sacrificed the red heifer. This is going to be the 10th time and final. They've been waiting for the 10th time. So they say the 10th time that this happens, that's when the Messianic age will come. So they believe that once they do this and they sprinkle the ashes on the state of Israel, metaphorically or physically, who knows, then that will be when the land is purified. And then they can begin the construction of the temple. There's an issue now, that this holy temple that they want to build, that'll usher their Messiah to come down in their beliefs. Mind you, everyone's tripping out. Oh, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter. This is what they believe and this is what they're going to do. That temple that they want to build is supposed to be located and built upon where Masjid al-Aqsa is. One of the 3 most holy sites of Islam, where the Temple Mount is. The Dome of the Rock, the Masjid al-Aqsa, and the whole compound is considered Masjid al-Aqsa. The Dome of the Rock too. The whole, everything. So the Jews, by their own halakha and law, they're not allowed to go and establish anything or pray on that site. Did you know this? They're not allowed to according to their own beliefs. They establish things at the foot of the mount. They establish like little prayer sites or even underneath. They do not establish anything on the top of the mount because they believe it's not time yet. Now, the time is coming close and they're going to build their temple. And in order to do that, remember, one foundation of the prophecy is that Jerusalem has to be a Jewish city, which means that whole land can't have any other guys in there. It has to be purely Jewish. The whole population has to be raised to the ground or evacuated. Do whatever it can at all costs to get rid of the people, the Muslims in that land, so we can create a Jewish city fundamentally, and then get rid of the mosque. Destroy it and build a temple.
You know, one of the reasons Hamas, Abu Ubaidah said they attacked on October 7th is because the red heifer sacrifice.
And it makes sense. Well, but here's another thing, and this is my high IQ, extremely genius opinion. And I fundamentally believe this, that not only was October 7th the happiest and greatest day for the state of Israel, and they were so happy, and all the Jews were excited and clamoring, and they were rolling around, and they were jumping up and down in happiness that October 7th happened. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu was the happiest.
Yeah.
Yesterday it came attacked. I also believe that October 7th was planned by the Israeli intelligence, by
Really?
Mossad. Yeah, fundamentally. In fact, the evidence is so overwhelming that they knew about this attack and perhaps even had a hand in it, that they themselves are acknowledging that fact and say, we'll investigate this once the war is over. Let's start with, and this is another, I believe, another ritual, a sacrifice they made of their own people to hasten the Messianic age.
I see.
Let's paint the picture properly. Number one, first and foremost, according to both Egypt and America, Israel was informed of an attack within the week of October 7th, a year prior to it happening. They were informed. They say there's an intelligence and a plot that's planned for an operation to invade, the borders of Israel and attack. Israeli intelligence was given this information by Egypt and by America. So they were aware and they ignored it because according to the other international intelligence agencies, there was no response. They ignored it. Number two, there was a significant amount of funding towards Iran before that, and Iran was channeled that funding towards Palestine, right? And who was funding Iran at the time? Out of nowhere, just pushed into random bills. It was America.
Really?
America just started dumping millions and millions of dollars into them. Number three, the day of October 7th attack was an unprecedented day in Israeli history in terms of cybersecurity and physical security. Unprecedented. In fact, there's more security at my house right now than there was that day on the borders of Israel. Anybody who enters Palestine understands that crossing the border from the Palestinian land into Israel is a hefty process. You're going to meet soldiers that are going to stop you. Everywhere you go, there's walls and there's soldiers and there's infrared technology to detect people, and there's motion sensors, and there are even kilometers that you have to travel to go through to certain lands. It's not like just you jump a fence and you go.
Yeah.
You see the live footage of October 7th from the dash cams of these infiltrators. There was not a soldier in sight. Not a soldier in sight.
Yeah.
The fences were all cleared. There was not an alarm system tripped. They were there for hours without any response. Yeah. On top of the fact that the army, when they were informed, were told to stand down. Yeah. How ridiculous. This doesn't make sense. We're talking about the greatest, most secure nation on the planet. Most secure. Yeah. Where even a butterfly can't flutter into its land without being noticed. Yeah. Yet these people entered and exited.
Yeah. And the Nova Music Festival was actually moved closer.
Closer, yes.
Like a few days before.
And so this is a routine procedure for the Mossad. Why? Because Mossad are experts in false flag attacks. There's growing conspiracies that even Mossad was involved in 9/11. This is actually a very, very public conspiracy. A lot of people regard it as truth. There was investigations into this at that time. It was quelled, obviously, because of the war in Iraq, and they had to stop it. But the Mossad are, in fact, the CIA often consult Mossad in terms of torture, right? Espionage, and these things like operations, intelligence operations, false flags.
Yeah, and actually, it was Israel that pulled America into invading Iraq. It was their idea.
Of course, the same. I don't want to be one of those guys that says it's all Israel. It is all Israel, 100%. Because Congress is 90% dual citizenship in Israel. The presidents are all evangelicals giving support to Israel.
Yeah, and if you look at the way it works, aside from the ideological stuff, like we know that's there, both like liberal secular values and their own religious beliefs for the Jews and the evangelical Christians. But if you look at it from a financial perspective, AIPAC, probably funded by Israel itself, is paying politicians.
AIPAC is funded by Israel, yeah.
Yeah, so Israel is funding AIPAC, and AIPAC is funding politicians and getting them to fund Israel. So it's like a circle of control where the money's coming in and going out and it's nothing. What America's sending to Israel is billions of dollars. What they're putting in is maybe a few million into the pockets of people that hold that power.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing, that Congress that makes the deciding uh, legislative decisions in
It's
America
controlled.
are controlled by lobbying groups of Israel.
Yeah.
So APAC is one of them. It's a lobbyist group, for those who don't know, that basically goes out and sends donations to the fact that we're allowing these lobbyist groups to even do this, lobbying should be illegal, but it's not.
Yeah.
They send donations to congressmen to urge them to, hey, consider this matter.
Yeah.
Take into this matter.
Yeah.
In fact, the Israeli lobby is so powerful that every time a politician or even a president gets into power, the first call they receive on their desk is Israeli lobby. Look into Israel, talk about this, talk about that, support Israel. They're bombarded to the point where they feel guilty. In fact, blackmail with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff even,
Yeah.
there goes deep.
Even Candace Owens recently, when she was let go from the Daily Wire, she had a show and she said they it's not that she's pro-Palestinian or anything. They wanted her to be undyingly vocal about Israel, and just because she wasn't loud enough, they gave her a hard time.
Of course, because we have to understand who the media companies are owned by. Um,
Daily Wire is Jeremy Boring, Ben Shapiro, a bunch of Zionists.
all of the media companies, not even just the openly Israeli media companies,
Yeah.
all of these. So here's another interesting fact no one knows about.
Mm.
The Israeli intelligence are very, very interested in controlling the media narrative. And so that's why they send a bunch of agents out to either have vested control over these media companies or own them completely. Robert Maxwell, which is the father in law of Jeffrey Epstein, owned some really big newspaper companies in Britain. Yeah. And he's a Mossad agent.
Wow.
He was a high level Mossad agent. Mossad is the Israeli intelligence. No one knows this. Why? In fact, interesting fact, Robert Maxwell is one of the guys who brokered the deal between Switzerland and Israel to give them a lot of weapons like tanks and jets and stuff like that. And this is Jeffrey Epstein's father-in-law. Rumors are of it that that guy Robert Maxwell introduced his own daughter to Jeffrey Epstein to start that ring.
Wow.
Whether they met organically or it was through the father, it was like depends, bro.
SubhanAllah. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Let's get back to the black magic and stuff. Do you think Epstein, obviously he was involved in very detestable things, was he involved in black magic at all?
I think what you have to understand is this stuff is black magic.
Mm.
So
Like
what is black magic in general, and what do these people believe is black magic? Black magic, according to them, is making sacrifices to greater entities in exchange for power. The Freemasons believe that the rituals that they do, especially when you get to the higher levels, according to Albert Pike, which is the grandfather of Freemasonry, basically their pope, he says that once you enter these higher levels of initiation and gain higher truths, you start to learn about these sacrifices that you make in the name of who? Lucifer and other demonic entities. You make sacrifices to them. In exchange, those guys give them power. They're like, we don't know why we get influence and political power and fame and money, but when we make these sacrifices, we do get those things. And so we continue to do that. But what are the sacrifices? A sacrifice generally is to take something valuable and to basically destroy it, discard it, give it up in the name of something else. That's what a sacrifice is. So there's good sacrifices and bad sacrifices. You make sacrifices based on your career for better aspirations. You make sacrifices for your time to better yourself. These guys make sacrifices of very valuable things on earth.
Like what? Like pure things, like
So what is the most valuable thing that you could sacrifice?
human life.
A human life. But what's more valuable? Let's go deeper. If you wanted to sacrifice something, the greatest sacrifice you could make.
The most innocent kind of human life?
Yes. And so what's the most innocent human life?
Children.
Okay, a baby. And then what? Okay, how do we sacrifice it? Do we just kill it? Is there a way that we could sacrifice it that's even more powerful according to their belief? What's more corruptible than simply killing it?
Burning, cannibalism. I don't want to say it.
Yeah,
I don't wanna say it.
abusing them in a sexual manner as well. And we know these things happen because Jeffrey Epstein, this is why I say he was tip of the iceberg and it was just a what do you call it? A honeypot? Just to get information, but it wasn't serious because there's way worse groups. There's many other Jeffrey Epsteins out there, but they're dealing with not rich and famous people. They're maybe rich, but not famous.
Yeah.
According to the FBI departments that are involved in investigating these child sex rings, bro, you hear some of these individuals' testimonies, and they say, we come across footage or basically sites where we know these things happened. And the evidence that we have is so mind-blowing and shocking and disturbing that you wouldn't even fathom to think that that happened. Your mind wouldn't go to that lengths of depravity. So like if I explain to you right now that these guys said we've come across evidence of basically warehouses that were outfitted as maternity wards and doctors that would come and bring these slaves, these female slaves that are pregnant, take them out of the womb, and while the umbilical cord is still attached, you'd have individuals come in and do all types of disgusting things that I can't speak about to the newborn child with the umbilical cord still attached to the mother. Can you believe that? Now that's unbelievable. But then there's evidence for these things happening. This is not unknown. Okay, you could look this up. There's FBI departments that'll testify to this type of evidence. Now the question is, why is this happening? This is clearly not a sexual desire because there's nothing sexual about this. This is a greater level of perverseness at foot. And why do they do this? You have to admit to the fact that these people are devilish and they believe that doing this is one of the greatest acts of corruption and sacrifice.
Wow, that's disgusting. And I think that for a lot of people, especially people who are not familiar with this begs the question, why these rituals? Why can't it be something else? Like you light some candles and say, ooh, ah, and whatever, do some chants. It's because if you're working with Satan, what does Satan want? Satan wants the exact opposite of what God wants. Satan wants a bunch of people in the hellfire, a bunch of corruption on earth, a bunch of evil, anything that God does not like. So offing innocence and harming and RPing and cannibalism and all that stuff, feces, impurities, all that stuff. So this is where they thrive, and this is why they'll be more likely to be in like gross, impure environments, because it's like where they belong, basically. A'udhu billah.
That's true, and you have to understand these individuals don't just necessarily believe in devil. A lot of them, they believe that Lucifer, for example, was a revered figure. They believe primarily into demons, idols and demons and stuff, and that's who they believe they're getting their power from.
Wow.
You understand? So it goes deep. Let me just put this down like this. Okay.
So what is the actual power? Like they get rich and famous, but like how?
According to Albert Pike's testimony, he says that they get in response. It doesn't clarify how, but he gets power and money and fame, whatever they need at the time. They're granted that. How exactly? It's regardless. Not really sure. Remember, I'm no like initiate in these things, so I don't want to be.
Yeah.
But this is the occult. Now, the Qabalah, which is the mystic tradition of the Jewish people, by all accounts, practices a lot of these type of black magic rituals. In fact, if I were to list off a lot of the Qabalah, the rituals that they do, you'd go like, this is just fundamentally black magic.
Yeah.
And this is mainstream Jewish belief that there's Kabbalist. In fact, this is the only people who are allowed to practice the Qabalah magic are the elites, as in the upper level rabbis that have been initiated. They're of a certain age and they have a certain degree of understanding of the Torah and the Talmud.
Yeah.
So all these conditions have to be fulfilled. So it's not just a regular layman guy. It's like the most upper level and knowledgeable rabbis are allowed to practice this.
Yeah. Also, by extension, the most like trustworthy to not reveal that kind of information.
Yeah, and as you said, secrecy,
Concealment. Yeah.
concealment is part of their tradition.
Yeah.
Part of the Kabbalistic tradition is to conceal what they believe and what they do. It's
They
concealment.
They actually believe it makes it more powerful.
Of course, because part of it is this type of ritual and magic could only exist in the dark, and so when light is shed on it, it weakens in power and it gets destroyed. Right?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental light and dark. And so the Freemasons also believe this. They have the shadow and they have the light. And so the people in the light, I would akin Zionism to the light and the Freemasonry to the dark of the moon. So the moon is basically an entity that lives in the vacuum of darkness, but it still has a light side.
Yeah.
Right? But it's still surrounded by darkness and it still has a dark side. And so Freemasonry is just that. That's why the Freemasons were the one who founded the Zionist party. Everyone references the Balfour Declaration. Oh, the Balfour Declaration, British people gave the British Parliament gave them the authority and who is behind the British Parliament and who did the British Parliament write the Balfour Declaration to? When the Wilfred Balfour wrote the declaration to give support to the Zionist party in 1930s. He wrote the letter addressed to the Zionist party, but to which individual? Lord Walter Rothschild is on the letter. This is the pictures in archives.org. You could find this picture of the actual letter that was written. It was said that Lord Walter Rothschild, Lord Baron Rothschild at that time, was essentially the head of the Zionist party. There's interviews with the Rothschilds even claiming that we are responsible for the Zionist, the state of Israel, in effect. And so it's these guys. Also, the Rothschilds were so powerful that they could curry favor with the British Parliament because, in fact, they funded the British Parliament. They funded the British state. Lord Walter Rothschild only went in front of Congress or Parliament twice in his life to ask for two things. One was the banning of raw milk, which I don't know to this day why he did that. It makes sense because raw milk's so healthy, and maybe he just wants people to just be. I don't know. That's so weird that he did that. But the second one was essentially for the creation of the state of Israel and the land to be given.
You know what? Firstly, you said before you wanted to define Qabalah and mysticism and what they actually mean. So I think inshallah we should touch on that because I'm curious myself. But also it's so strange because when you look at it from kind of just like a worldly perspective, you see like for example the American database, the government, they have an entry and they say just in the abstract section that the Jewish Zionist terrorist organizations that were running around in Palestine in the 1930s were so sophisticated that the British had to surrender the mandate to them. So I'm wondering how that kind of thing works out in the grand scheme of things. Was that all just a setup? Was that all an excuse?
So for that, we'd have to go back to kind of during the time of an individual by the name of Rebbe. Okay? Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, right? This individual was essentially the leader of a movement called the Chabad. The Chabad Leibovich movement is an orthodox movement of the Jewish sect, which was actually, some regard, potentially even a terror group. And it's one of the most fundamental groups, one of the most popular groups in Jewish faith, pretty much. And so this Rebbe guy was in Britain, and he was messianic. He wanted these messianic prophecies to come about, and he believed that the Messiah will come very soon. So he was born in 1901, he died in 1993, and within his lifetime, he kind of dedicated his movement to bring about the coming of the Messiah and the state of Israel. He gained power in the 1940s, and soon after, a few decades later, he gained an alliance with an individual within the Israeli parliament by the name of Benjamin Netanyahu. And so he was Benjamin Netanyahu's mentor. And he prophesized and he predicted that Benjamin Netanyahu was going to be the final prime minister of Israel, and he is personally going to welcome the Messiah.
Really?
Yeah. And so Benjamin Netanyahu held this man in very high regard. This guy mentored him. In fact, a lot of the Chabad groups, a lot of their constituents believe that this Rabbi Mendelssohn guy is in fact himself the Messiah and he's going to get resurrected. Because a lot of them believe, how could he die? And so this guy is behind Benjamin Netanyahu.
Wow.
This guy is behind why Benjamin Netanyahu is so prophecy-oriented, why Benjamin Netanyahu furthered the red heifer prophecy, why he's promoting the creation of the third temple. It's this guy Rebbe. Rebbe, just a rich British guy, rich Ukrainian Russian guy who's a Jew, who went to Brooklyn, fled the Nazi Germany, and gained power in this group. And now this group, the Chabad, which he was the ruler of, or the leader of, has their headquarters in almost 100 countries, or over 100 countries in the world, and they influence politics to a great degree. So this Rebbe guy, and once they created the state of Israel, a lot of the Israeli people that went to live there, a lot of the terror groups, they were either found inspiration from this Chabad Leibowitz group, or they were actually constituents of their group. And so that's why they were so, organized. They knew exactly what they're doing, and they had a purpose. It's to fulfill these prophecies. First one, and as I said, those three parts of the prophecy coming true, which is first you need a state of Israel created, then second you need Jerusalem to be a Jewish state, and third you need the third temple of Solomon. Those are the three things you need before the Messiah comes. Rabbi Mendelssohn wanted this first thing to happen, and that's these terror groups came and just attacked. Islam believes that their Messiah, the Dajjal, is not here. It's not here yet, and I think the plan will fail. Okay,
Also,
I don't think it'll happen.
like
I
the
think
sacrifice won't happen, or
the sacrifice will happen.
but whatever
I
they
don't
think
think
will come
whatever they.
from it.
I don't think that the Solomon's temple is gonna happen. You know what I mean? It'll take a while to get created, and bro, it's gonna get destroyed. Well, according to our prophecy, it's gonna fail eventually, anyways. You know what I mean? So that's where I go with this. You know what I mean? But yeah, you talked about the Qabalah. We could also define what the Qabalah is. And I love talking about this because everyone's so like ignorant of it. Yet it's the reason why all this stuff's happening. This is the Qabalah. In fact, I have a lot of stuff written down here. So if I ever look here and reference some of this stuff, then please, um, mind you, I don't want to get anything wrong. So the Chabad movement, that's very messianic, that this Rebbe guy was a leader of, and he created the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, basically, and he's responsible for him growing in power. The Chabad movement, the name Chabad or Chabad, comes from it's basically like a short form of three Sephiroth in the Kabbalistic tree of life. The Qabalah, basically the mystic sect of Judaism, have this tree of life where all basically life and energy come from. And three characteristics or Sephiroth make up the term Chabad. So everything is Kabbalistic. All the Jewish beliefs that they have stem from the Qabalah, which is their mystic beliefs of how the universe is created, the understanding of God. God is Ein Sof, and what they believe. All of this stuff is Kabbalistic. But the Kabbalah is also how to perform miracles, how to do divine enchantments, how to do all these things, basically what Moses did, what Noah did, all these miracles. And they believe that's a tradition that is passed down and can be replicated. Rituals, black magic circles, miracles could all happen. You understand? So that's what the Kabbalah is. And so that's what they continuously try to do. In fact, in the 15th century, during the Alhambra decree, notoriously known as big expulsion of the Jews from Europe, the Spanish kings kicked the Jews out. Why? No one asked this because it's not written in Wikipedia. You Google it. The Jews were kicked out because Rabbi Joseph de la Reina was a Kabbalistic Jew, and at that time he wanted to hasten the coming of the Messianic age. And so he taught everybody these Kabbalistic rituals. How to create golems, how to resurrect the dead, like create zombies basically, how to create homunculi, chimeras, how to chant and summon angels, demons, and even God. So he taught them all these things. It didn't work because I don't even believe it's real. But the Spanish kings found out about this. They're like, get out of here. Just get out of here. Like you were expelling all of you guys.
Yeah, because the threat is actually very real. They're not worried that God's going to come down.
No.
But there's a political threat that comes with that.
100%.
100%. Yeah, no worries. Because they believe that the Messiah that comes, this is what you were mentioning before, the Messiah that comes is going to be a political Messiah. And that's actually why they aim to crucify Jesus, alayhi salam, because he claimed to be the king of the Jews, the Messiah, and that's a
100%.
political title.
Yeah. And see, they don't want that. Their Messiah fundamentally, and it's interesting because they also have the concept of an anti-Mashiach. No one knows about this. They believe that there's going to be a figure where it's going to, just like the Christians, the Muslims have the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Then they have the Messiah, then the anti-Messiah. So the Christians have the Christ and the Antichrist.
Oh, the
We have the
Masih
Masih.
and the Masih.
And then, so we have that. They also believe that they have the Mashiach. They call it the Mashiach, the Messiah. And they also have something where they would refer to it as the anti-David. Because they don't have a Christ in their books. They have a David is a big king. And they'll have an anti-David who comes out and fights against their Messiah. And so, see, even the battle between the Messiah figure and anti-Christ is there. Except they have it backwards, according to us. You know what I mean?
SubhanAllah. And it's very interesting because I like when we can take Islamic prophecies and Islamic narrations of the Prophet ﷺ and contextualize them today in a way that makes sense. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said in one hadith that the Dajjal will come out from between Asham, which is like Palestine, Syria, and Iraq. And then he also mentioned in one hadith, I'm not as sure as the authenticity of this narration, but the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned he will come out from that area with 70 Jews, 70 Jewish people following him.
I heard 70,000, by the way. I remember I looked into it. I heard 70, but I heard 70,000.
When he first comes out?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard in the hadith it specifically says when he first comes out, there will be 70 Jews. Now, what exactly this means, Allahu Alam, but like it's important to note that from an Islamic perspective because they believe the Messiah is going to come first, and we know that it's going to be the Dajjal.
Yeah, and this prophecy game is very interesting because it's almost like all these groups, the evangelical Christians, the Muslims, the Freemasons, and the Jews, they all agree on some of the fundamental traits of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they've all been happening slowly. It's like they've been happening. In fact, a lot of the Islamic prophecies about the end times, they've been slowly coming true. And so the Freemasons, the same thing. The only difference is a lot of the other groups have these man-made prophecies. The Freemasons want to reconstruct the Temple of Solomon too. In fact, this is why a lot of Freemasons are Jews. And this is why a lot of Freemasons are funding the future project to rebuild the temple. A lot of funding and donations coming from these Freemasons to rebuild it. Why? And no one talks about this. The mainstream opinion is that they want to investigate the Temple Mount and all that stuff to see the old temple. No. They believe that when the third temple comes again, it'll be an era where black magic and demon worship, demonology and all that stuff will be open again. The gates will open and they could do these rituals and sacrifices like the time of King Solomon. They'll be able to practice these things again.
Wow.
It'll be an age of like the occultic and the hidden. Occult is the hidden. The hidden will come to light again.
That sounds like something that Shaitan would, deceive them into believing, so they carry on in more evil.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
And well, the Qabalah is a very strong tradition in Freemasonry as too. Freemasons consider the Qabalah, which is the Jewish mystic tradition, very, very strong. Numerology and astrology and all these things also stem from the Kabbalist tradition. This is all together. This all ties in together. What does this mean for the future? Is this stuff going to come true? No, this is what they believe. We don't believe that's all going to happen. We believe they're trying their best to make it happen. And this is why everyone should know this, because I'm not saying their prophecies are divinely inspired and are going to happen. What I'm saying is their prophecies, they believe in their own prophecies. So they're going to do their utmost to make those prophecies come true. Which is what? Wiping out Jerusalem and making it a purely Jewish city. Okay? Making Israel a purely Jewish city, destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque to rebuild the third temple. And then bring about the coming of the Messiah, who will basically enslave all the world's non-Jews. The whole world's non-Jews, and create slaves. So that's what they believe. And like, it doesn't matter what's actually going to happen. This is what they're going to try to do.
Yeah. So it's kind of know thy enemy, know what they're up to. And it's I think it's beautiful that Islam tells us just enough. It tells us just what we need to know, that it exists, that it can have effects, how to protect ourselves from it, that they can't do anything except by the permission and allowance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that they really don't have much, like the jinn don't really have much power, there's not really much they can do, especially to a believer, to a Muslim. Like they go to a Muslim, they read Ayat al-Kursi, and then what can they do?
No. And there was a story, I'm pretty sure it was a hadith, because we talked about this earlier, about the story of Prophet Sulaiman. And we know Prophet Sulaiman had the control over the jinns. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him control over the jinns, as in power, and he'd basically enslave them. He would bind them and punish them, and they had no control over him. They were in fear of him. But it was, specified that the jinns did not know the unseen. They did not know. And so they're telling a story about how Prophet Sulaiman went to like a field and put these jinns to work, and he would leaned on his staff to watch them work. And all these jinns kept on working, and they were looking up at Sulaiman in fear. It's like, he's like, they're scared of him. And they would look up, he's still leaning on his stick. We just got to keep on working. So they were working for like a long time. Some say days or months or whatever it was. Until the ants or the bugs, the termites or whatever it was, were gnawing at Sulaiman's stick. And eventually it broke his stick and it snapped, and it realized he was dead standing on that stick for so long. And so the story is, if these jinns knew the unseen, then they should have known that Suleiman died standing on
Yeah.
that stick. Allah took his soul while he was leaning on that stick.
Subhanallah.
But they didn't know that because why? They don't know the unseen.
Yeah. Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
They're just trickery. It's just
Yeah.
use tricks.
Absolutely. And that's something like telling if someone's alive or not, if there's a soul in the body or not.
If they're supposed to know the unseen, how do you not know these simple things?
Yeah. Subhanallah. The jinn are actually pretty dumb. You know, like I remember things like they can't. There's certain types of knowledge that they just can't retain. Like it's not in them to retain.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Remember, these guys are a different plane, and
Yeah.
we are powerful, and they are not powerful in this regard. Like they cannot affect us.
Yeah.
Like we are clarify this for me. We are superior creatures to jinns. Is that true in Islam?
Yeah. We are.
Yeah.
We are. You know what's crazy? You just reminded me of something. I don't know how true this is. I really think I met a jinn once.
Hmm.
I really feel like I did.
Oh yeah.
I genuinely feel like I met a jinn before because I was with me and my friend.
Uh-huh.
We were at a coffee shop, a cafe in Mississauga, and I swear to God, the room is like full, has a bunch of people. I swear this guy comes out of nowhere. I'm not watching the entrance, for God's sake, but it seems like he just appeared out of nowhere. He looked fairly rugged. He was a very strange person. I asked if he could get anything, if he wants anything to eat. He seemed like a Muslim, right? And he got like a little chocolate cake. I swear to God, he didn't take a single bite of it.
Hmm.
So he just sat there, didn't take a single bite of it. And he had a lot of knowledge of like things around the world, politics around the world, what's going on around the world, but nothing else really. Then we said, we're gonna go pray. Do you want to come pray with us? He said, no, I'm not clean. I'm dirty. I can't. We're like, just come pray. He's like, no, I'm dirty. I can't. And then I swear, it was almost like he disappeared after that. Not like in front of my eyes, but it's like
Sure.
he
Yeah,
got up, walked away, and then like I look around, look at my eyes, he's just gone all of a sudden.
That's fascinating.
I know.
That's so
I might be
interesting.
wrong. Maybe he's just a weird guy, and like
But
maybe
you
he
just had
wasn't
this
here.
feeling that it was very
Yeah, he was a
unordinary.
very strange person. It was very strange. And me and my friend talked about it after. We both felt the same thing. I felt like it was a jinn. He felt like it was a jinn. And we came together afterwards and spoke about it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's interesting thing about Islam too. There's a good jinn and bad jinn,
Yeah.
right? There's Muslim jinn and non-Muslim jinn. There's
Yes.
jinns who believe in God and
Yeah. And they fear
Tawheed,
Allah.
and they fear God, and there's
Mhm.
some who don't.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we should go out and contract with them and
Yeah,
communicate with them.
a'udhu
That's
billah,
different. Like
yeah, that's haram.
that's
Yeah.
not that's the pagan way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting story. But you see, the jinns do have their unique abilities, and this is what drawn a lot of people throughout history, the pagans especially, to go and do idol worship or summoning devils and chanting demons. There's a reason they did this stuff. They believed they would give them power, and to some extent, they would achieve power. Some of them, but whether that's to their benefit or not, or what that was, or what that was illusion, that's not between us, to know. God knows. And to all those devil worshippers and all the occult, because I hate these people. I actually, one of the things I hate the most, with an active conscious hatred and disgust and loathing, to the point where like I'd be the first to pick up a torch during the Salem witch trials, and I would burn like this. I would that guy. To anybody who does these things, there's a death awaiting for you that's very cruel, and there's no afterlife for you. Because this is very, very bad stuff. This is pagan worship. It's the most evil of things. The things that these occultic traditions do just to gain power is ridiculous. The stuff I told you about the children. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? What compels you to go this lengths?
It's disgusting. May Allah punish them. As soon as their soul is taken, it's the eternity of punishment. From the moment their soul is taken, the angels are there. From that moment onward, it's torture, and it only gets worse. From that point up until infinity, it gets infinitely worse forever.
And it makes sense because these are powers that we should not contract with. We should not play with at all.
Yeah.
There was I forget which. There's another cool, interesting topic I was going to talk about, specifically related to the concept of the temple. I forget. There's so much things. Is there any questions? Do you have anything you're wondering about that I might know about?
The temple specifically?
Regarding the whole, the whole occult, the temple, their sacrifices, the Kabbalist rituals.
There's so much, man. SubhanAllah.
We
Yeah, go on.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, obviously, we don't want to get too specific in anything because we don't want to like learn about what they do, but we need to learn about like the kind of the effects and what they believe.
Well, I like learning about their history and not their practices because
Yeah.
number one, it's not easy to learn their practices.
Yeah.
You really have to go out of your way
Yeah.
and take time to like get indoctrinated. You have to be indoctrinated into their belief system to learn the
Yeah.
practices.
Yeah. And you know what? Sorry to cut you off, but I know I won't say any names, but I know a person who knows a person who this person I trust very much. They know a person, and that person got into like black magic and witchcraft and evil stuff. And I think they were a Muslim. They, you know how they got into it? They got into it because they were looking at what Israel wanted from under Al Aqsa. So they started looking into it, and then they got into it, witchcraft themselves.
And this is yo, so
A'udhu billah.
this is wallah, and I'm actually dead serious. Is always constantly on my mind, and this is why whenever people ask me for reading material, "Oh, what do you read?" I never give it. I actually have books on this topic. I never ever give it to anybody because I'm consciously aware whenever I'm reading these things, and I'm not reading, by the way, their own scripture. I'm reading the interpretation and the history from other various, like if it was a Christian or even a Muslim, on the accounts of what they believe. It's this stuff could be very dangerous. Like I'm scared when I read this stuff because I'm scared this is a very bad path and no one wants to go down it. But even the Freemason tradition is so the interesting thing about what you just said, Freemasons themselves, they go through a series like a degrees where they get slowly initiated. And it's not until they get to the 32nd degree that they realize they're an occultic group where they, make rituals and sacrifices. Why? The first few degrees is like ultimate truth, morals, and religion. They learn all these things because that's what the group is. They're trying to figure out what morals are and get to the truth of higher truth of morals.
Yeah, it's really like a cult. They indoctrinate you, and then you
Yeah.
don't know what you're getting into.
Well, when you really go down that path, when you try to like philosophize what the foundation of morals is, and you don't have a godhead, fundamental godhead, um, or it's arbitrary, then you start to kind of like make things up.
Yeah, because you can really philosophize anything. You know, you can make any like that's how liberalism was created. Oh,
Yep.
human beings are free. You know, free in what capacity? Free in what sense? And then as soon that's the thing about these man-made principles, they will turn back on it. You know, in a second. Like with freedoms and liberties, I know it's not the topic of the discussion. They'll turn back in a second. The moment they say human beings are free, they have to cap it with unless they do X, Y, Z.
Of course, there's limitations to freedom in
Yeah,
every regard, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is fundamentally
yeah.
agreed upon. Did we talk about Moses and the climbing of Mount Sinai? Did I talk about it in the
You did
video?
not mention that, no.
See, I'm all
Yeah,
over the
yeah,
place. I need
yeah,
to write this down because I'm,
yeah.
mind
You
you,
need
I
to
did
write a
not
book.
plan this at all. I didn't. I'm just saying it off the top of my head when I hear it
Yeah,
because this is so interesting and fascinating and also evil. The foundation of the beliefs of these black magic uh, groups. So another thing they corrupted is the story of Moses. You know, Musa alayhi salam got the 10 commandments from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He got the basically Allah to give to his people, right? A Sharia, right? And the Jews believe that he got the 10 commandments. But what do the Kabbalists believe? It's another corruption. The Kabbalist Jews believe that Prophet Moses alayhi salam climbed the Mount Sinai 3 times, not once. The first time he climbed Mount Sinai to talk to God was to get the 10 commandments, the halakha, the law. And the second time he climbed, he got the soul of the law, which is the deeper interpretation of the law that rabbis and clerics use to spread the word and understand the religion better. Then he ascended for a third time, and what did he get there? It's not much known what he got there because they don't really talk about it. But what the interpretation is, he got black magic from God. This is what they believe, by the way. He got black magic from God, the soul of the law, the deepest interpretation of the law that would allow them to transcend some of these mortal shackles in which they could use to perform miracles and conduct magic. They call it, by the way, Qabalah is white magic, allowed magic. That's what they believe. The mystical traditions of allowed magic. And so that was the same. By the way, that black magic was only supposed to be given, and from what they believe, Moses was only going to distribute that to the highest levels of rabbis.
like what they're doing now.
Now, only the initiated rabbis of a certain age and a certain degree and a certain knowledge base are qualified. Basically, rulers and the leaders of the of the schools are allowed to even research into it and look into it and be taught. So the people who are educating and like directing the Prime Minister of Israel, he's not self-serving. He has his own rabbis and clerics that are advising him. Even the Rebbe, who is his mentor and is basically, the shadow behind him. His Chabad movement is a Kabbalistic movement. The Chabad is a Kabbalah, 3 Sephiroth of the Kabbalah put together. So,
SubhanAllah. That's crazy. Did you hear the story of the man who discovered the number to send satellites to space?
no.
No. So I forget the name. Wallah, I want to look it up because it's so interesting. But there is a man who discovered, he kind of like unlocked the numbers that he needed to be able to send satellites to space. And
It came to him in a dream?
yes, not just that, but he was trying to figure out he couldn't. And then it came to him in a dream or a vision or
And
something.
I have something to say about that
Yeah.
concept of coming to dream, but go ahead.
So it came to him in a dream or a vision or whatever. And the numbers were given to him. And the entity that gave him the numbers, you know what they called themselves? They said they are the Antichrist. They told him, I'm the Antichrist. And then he died mysteriously after doing it. He died mysteriously in some kind of explosion or something.
That's so fascinating because I didn't know that specific story, but I knew right when you said it, where the numbers come from, I knew right away it came to him in a dream. And why is that? Haven't you heard in school throughout history all of these great scientists that made like crazy advancements in science? It's always told it just came to them. Somehow it just came to them in a dream or something or a meditative state. And the funny thing is, no one ever mentions what ethno-religion and every single one of these scientists were a part of. They were part of a particular ethno-religion. In fact, the leaders of all of these advancements in society, technological advancements, scientific advancements, predominantly the psychologies and the sociologies and the anthropologies, a lot of the sciences of the nukes and the laws of physics. One could make an argument that these are knowledge of the unseen. We can't see them. You cannot see a subatomic particle, right? You cannot see quarks, and you cannot see the atomic, like what do you call it, particle superposition and spooky action at a distance. You cannot see these things. But the foundational mathematics came to these individuals almost out of random inspiration, either in a meditative state or sleep. Tesla was one of them too. He actually wrote about this.
Who? Elon?
Nikolai Tesla.
Oh, okay, Tesla.
Bro, he would just get visions, fam. Like he'd be asleep and he believed he was connected to like the greater super thought cloud out in the universe where all thought comes from, and he had a greater connection to it, and just things kept on coming to him. He would just quickly draw it before it get out of his mind.
Wow.
And so all of these guys are like this.
SubhanAllah.
It just comes to them.
That's very scary.
In fact, the grandfather of psychology, Carl Jung, occultist as well, he would take his patients and he would drive them to the point of insanity, and then do all types of experiments, perhaps deprive them of sleep and tempt them into schizophrenia, delusions, to see if the people that they're seeing are actually demons. You just experiment like this. That's why Carl Jung had the concept of symbols. The symbol is a very occultic Freemason concept.
Yeah.
Symbols is a very pagan concept as well. With the ancient pagans used to believe this is pagan. Symbols is also a Kabbalistic. Bro, it all goes full circle.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Well, this is a deep conversation, bro.
Yeah.
This could go on forever.
Yeah, and we were talking before about the unknown unknowns. There are things that we know, right? I gave the very simple example of, there's a recipe for burgers. You know what the recipe is. You have a very good one yourself, alhamdulillah. And you know that. I know there's a recipe for burgers. I know I don't know what the recipe is.
Yeah.
Imagine how many things we don't even know that we don't even know. And that's
The unknown
how ignorant we
unknowns.
are. Unknown unknowns in regards to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are parts of history that that are missing. You're like, I don't know what happened between 1905 to 1917 regarding this peace declaration.
Yeah.
But what do you know about ancient civilizations that have no recorded history and no recorded evidence because they're wiped out? What do you know? You don't even know the fact that there is entities out there and groups that are conspiring with certain like rituals and black magic that they're trying to get an end of times prophecy revealed. You don't even know that you don't know that. It doesn't come to like, that's not a fact. So most of the things that are happening right now in the world are operating on this level of things no one knows that they don't know about.
Yeah.
That's why I say the world's religious, and the most powerful people in the world are religious. Atheism is losers and a schmucks game. It's such low IQ concept. An atheist notoriously is never in power, never has declared anything, never will, and he will die like in his depraved states of like depression. It's very low IQ. Even the greatest philosophers, they talk about Greek philosophers in Western academia, they're all monotheistic. No one knows this. Even though they were living in pagan times, they still believed in one God. They just believed the pagan idols were like symbols of greater truths. It's like the atheist is so stupid. Such a low IQ concept, bro.
Um, is there anything else we didn't talk about? Maybe when black magic was first put on Earth.
Black magic was first put on earth, according to the Quran, in Babylon, in the time of the Babylonian times.
Yeah.
Where's Babylon? Some say it's in the areas of Iraq, modern day Iraq.
Yeah.
And according to the Quran, and I'm pretty sure Christians believe in this as well, Christian mythology and Jewish mythology, that the start of the Babylonian black magic happened when two angels descended from heaven on the order of God. The angels in Islam are called Harut and Marut. The angels descended and basically went to the people of Babylon and told all of them, we come on the order of God and we have a test for the people. And the test is that this is black magic that if anyone wants, we will teach to them. But we first warn every single individual that if you want to practice this will damn you to eternity. You will be damned and you will be punished for infinite amount of time. And this is something that should always be, avoided. Yet if you want to do it knowing this stuff, you could learn. And there was a small group of individuals who went and learned from them. And so this is the damned. These are the individuals who are damned. In fact, there was the Babylon. It's apparently some traditions from the Babylonian time still exist today. The Babylonian Talmud. Let me double check this because this is very important. A Babylonian. Yeah, the Babylonian Talmud. So it goes back full circle, bro.
Yeah.
So the Talmud is basically rabbinic debates in the Jewish sect where rabbis will come and debate about various topics and try to learn more and seek greater history. There's a Babylonian Talmud that tries to chart its way all the way back to the Babylonian time. But for what reason? The only thing we have from Babylon, the Tower of Babylon and the black magic. And so they're trying to revisit and reinvestigate this concept. And they're saying, no, but this is stuff given by God. This is condemned black magic. And so it's always in the Talmud. In fact, bro, I know oh my God, bro. I don't want to say it, bro. In fact, there was a specific, I didn't even come across this myself. I was told about this, and when I Googled it quickly, I saw it was true. About a specific ritual that if you want to see a demon with your own eyes, in the Talmud it says this, you have to do a specific certain, I'm not going to say exactly what the specific, you have to do a certain thing with a cat to do something and take the ashes of this cat and do something else, and that you'll be able to see a demon doing this series of things. And what that was early on, and when I heard about this, I'm like, I'm never looking into rituals, specific rituals ever again, because I didn't look into this. I forget who said this, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. You're supposed to take a black cat and do what and what and what and what, and then do something with it.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to see demons according to the Talmud. Mind you, I don't believe that's real.
Yeah.
They made up something like that.
Yeah.
I think. Because I'm not a believer in black magic like that, but that's what they've written down. And so after that, I'm like, that's good thing I was warned about this because I'm not going to look into the details.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is dark stuff. People don't know how dark this is. The Talmud is littered with black magic. That's why, it's huge, so good luck looking into all of it, but it's littered with black magic rituals.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And so, do you know what they say? They say it's okay to write about it, but we only write about it to warn people not to do it. That's what is said in the books. We only write the specific series of rituals, but we must put a footnote in saying, don't do this is bad.
That's so stupid. Because if you didn't write it, then no one would know.
No, but they're doing this as a way of circumventing what they believe is karma.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know why. I remember this one thing Andrew Tate said. It actually kind of stuck with me. He's like, they need to let you know what they're doing.
It's called karmic redistribution. No, karmic. Oh, it's a concept. The devil worshippers believe in this concept of karma, where they could avoid karma if they warn you. If they warn you that the apple is poisoned and you take a bite out of it, then it's not on them that you poisoned yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
You know? Hey, there's a great apple. It's so shiny and it's amazing. It's the best apple in the world, but it's also a little bit poisonous. But it's okay, bro. Eat it because it tastes good. And just make sure you know it's poisonous.
yeah, yeah,
So once they do that, and that's the argument that a lot of people make when people ask, hey, why are they telling us, or why are they like publicizing this in movies? Like, oh,
yeah.
this is what they're going to do. You know, a subliminal messaging. It's a form of karmic retribution. They want to avoid the retribution of karma. This is what they believe. Like, we're gonna do evil, but before we do evil, we're gonna warn you so that you could at least have a chance to like maybe do something about it. But you can't because you're powerless, because we've convinced you you're powerless. And also you will ignore these warnings. So we're gonna do it, but it's your fault. Because you didn't stop us.
Yeah.
And that's their way of circumventing and avoiding karma. So they'll tell you, listen, the truth of what these people are doing is not hidden by any means of their goals and their aspirations and their plans.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look into it, or just keep your eyes open, you will know what the plan is.
Yeah.
And it's made like that on purpose because these guys, these devilish, you know, these pagans, the Cabal pagan agenda wants to tell you so they can avoid karmic retribution.
Wow. That's horrible. That's horrible.